We just had one of the most exciting grand finals in history of Fortnite. That was an absolute banger. I'm going to break down everything that happened. Peterbot finally got stopped and is by none other than Poyo. Savage and Mongrel popped off, but apparently Mongrel is now retiring. I want to go through the whole leaderboard, break down who popped off, what happened, and why this was one of the best FNCSs ever. So let's talk about. Let's jump into it. Let's just jump straight into going through the leaderboards. We're going to kick off with NA. Someone finally did it. Peterbot has been stopped, and it's none other than Poyo. Now, I predicted Peterbot to win this going into day one. I predicted Peterbot would come back and win it in day two as well, but that doesn't mean I didn't want Aegis, Akon, and Poyo to win it. I'm so incredibly happy for this trio. They came in first on 922 points. Ritual, Cold, and Peterbot finished in second on 908. Only a few eliminations behind. So people are going to say, Ozzy, what went wrong? What happened to Peterbot? Are they going to drop Cold? Ritual, Sold? Bro, Peterbot played really well. Their whole trio played really well. 908 points with no multiplier is really, really solid. Aegis, Akon, and Poyo just played that little bit better. They absolutely dominated. This was one of the most exciting grand finals we've ever had, if not the most exciting on both EU and NA. It came right down to the very last game. Peterbot dropped a 16 elim win in the last game, but it just wasn't enough. Akon's team held on with a 10 elim fourth, and it all came down to a clutch from Akon. All of his teammates down, versing an opponent, their teammates down, 1v1, Akon clutches it. They go on to get the extra points they need to win, but Peterbot almost won it. I actually thought we were going to see Peterbot land on Akon in game 12 going into the last game. Peterbot was like 40 points down. I thought that was the best way for them to win. Peterbot was confident that they could pop off, have a huge performance, and cut back the points. He did say after the tournament, his plan was to be uncontested because he thought he'd be uncontested. He randomly got dropped on in game 12. I'll explain why in a second. His plan was to then just get the loot, rotate straight to Akon and try to fight them at night shift and then go on to win the game. But Peterbot thought he was going to be uncaught. Now, I'm not really sure why the team landed on them. The team was in basically last place. It was Power's team. I actually genuinely think Powers thought that Pete was going to drop on Akon and they could get uncon flooded frogs for a big game to go on and make money. There's nothing about this team that suggests that I think they were doing it to grief Peterbot. The way they played the spawn fight, they didn't draw it out. They didn't play super weird. They didn't play super cringe. I genuinely think they thought they were going to get flooded frogs uncon. I would have put money on the fact that I thought Peterbot was going to land on Poyo. I was talking to my Twitch chat about it. I had read in my chat. We were talking about whether it would be a smart idea for Akon to drop flooded frogs, thinking that Peterbot was gonna drop night shift to avoid him and like dodge him out, like do a double back, double fake out. It didn't end up happening. Peterbot was confident he could win the tournament. I genuinely did think the lead was a little bit more. 40 points is maybe a little bit dramatic for me to say Peterbot dropping on Poyo, but they both made it to land. Both teams are now going to land. So a lot of people are asking me, what does this mean for Peterbot? Are they going to drop Ritual? A lot of people pointing fingers at Ritual, saying that's why they didn't win. They can't disband their trio now unless they officially disband by going to Epic. All three players have to officially disband the team. Otherwise, they're basically forced to play together. This happened with Cold of all people, with Akon. If you guys remember, Akon and Cold, after qualifying to land, tried to split up. They reached out to Epic, and it turns out they missed the deadline to disband their team as a team that qualified for land. So they were forced to play together and went on to dominate the rest of that chapter. So unless Peterbot's trio wants to do that, and if they do, the spot would roll down to third place, Clicks, Batman, Boog, and Iomzo. It's insane. We're talking about this. They put up 908 points. They won every single Trio Cash Cup finals. The perfect season coming into Grands. Only just lose Grands by a few elims to a phenomenal team. And we're talking about, are they going to split? How can they split? What does that mean? But Peterbot and Poyo split after having almost the perfect chapter. So anything's possible. I don't know whether they're actually going to. Peterbot was pretty quiet afterwards. He said he's going to be back in his prime next season, acting like Peterbot didn't put up one of the most insane performances we've ever seen. He was basically number one on all the stats, did over 20,000 damage. Akon, when he went live after winning, went on to say that Peterbot is the best player on the region and Peterbot played the best in this grand final. So I don't know what Peterbot's talking about getting back into his prime. Either we're going to see Peterbot on a whole different level next season, which I didn't think is possible, or I don't even know. I guess Peterbot just channels his disappointment and frustration into motivating himself more to do better. Kind of a crazy approach, but we didn't get much more from Peterbot over whether he thought that Cold sold or Ritual sold or this went wrong and that went wrong. There really wasn't a lot of finger pointing that I think a lot of people are expecting. Maybe we'll get that over the next few days. We don't have any trio tournaments now for the foreseeable future. I'm guessing they'll kick back up maybe next week or the week after. We have a new season kicking off in like 4 days, and We don't really know what the plan is for competitive. I'm guessing there'll be an eval cup maybe a few days in, and that's when we'll figure out who's playing with who. But right now, we didn't really get much time to figure out, what went wrong or what's going to change, because there's nothing really to play for at least a week. So everyone's kind of just chilling out. The amount of storylines that we had coming into this grand. Will Pete be the first ever NA 4 Pete? Will he join PH Zin as the only other player to get 4 FNCS's wins in a row? Will Cold win the first season of 3 chapters in a row? Everyone freaking out, and turns out we should have been focusing on the other players. Acorn is now won the first season of 3 chapters in a row, and Pollo is the only player in the world outside of PH Zin on Brazil to win 4 FNCS's in a row. All of these players now add up their FNCS count. Age is now on 2 alongside the one he won with Kanata. Acorn's up to 4, and Pollo is now tied with Peterbot on 4 also. So absolutely dominating. I predicted Acorn's team to come 3rd. I did not think, sorry, 4th. I did not think they were going to do this well. They absolutely showed up, went crazy. I was one of the people, like most people, confused why these teams even split up, why Pollo and Ages and Acorn even formed. I've genuinely thought that Acorn, Ages, and Kanata and Pollo, Bolts, and Rapid were the best 2 trios you could have. A lot of people said, why did these guys split up? Kanata was very angry with Acorn. It turns out, I guess it was for a reason. They saw some kind of vision that we didn't see. They did phenomenally well, and I do want to give them full props and full credit. All of them played amazing. Ages pulled off some insane solo clutches. I was just saying a few days ago, I truly do think Ages is very, very underrated as a fragger. He is one of the best players in the region. I'm not even going to try and pretend that I thought he would do this, but Ages really, when he had the spotlight on him, shone, and now he is one of the best fraggers in the region. And I think Pollo finally got to stand outside of Peterbot's shadow. All 3 of these players, most of their achievements usually get overshadowed by their teammates. Ages alongside Booga, Ages alongside Kanata, Acorn alongside Cold. Everyone's saying Cold carried him. Pollo with Peterbot. Don't even need to tell you how much it's been the Peterbot show for the last year, and all 3 of them really stood up on their own and did phenomenally well. Clix has also officially broken the 4th place curse. He came 3rd place overall on 736 points. A very, very impressive performance. Clix was super happy with this one. This is his best FNCS performance of all time. Doing it on stream. Batman, Boogie, Yomzo, and Clix look super, super dangerous going forward. They didn't get the land spot unless something happens with Peterbot. We'll have to see, but I'm guessing they didn't get the land spot, but they're going to stay together as far as we can see as a trio. I think they're going to perform phenomenally. They can only go up from here. They only formed a few weeks ago, and they've already put up Clix's best performance. It was really, really good to see, especially considering Clix was in 4th place for a very good majority of the tournament. It really did look like Clix was gonna finish in 4th place. That one went to Vidil, Cooper, and Sphinx. This was my team to pick to actually maybe beat Peterbot. I had them coming 2nd overall. 4th place is still really impressive. I actually had Cooper and Sphinx in my chat asking me, should they travel to EU? I want the storyline. I think it's a good idea going over there, playing with Vidil, making a bunch of content. I know Amar is cooking up crazy things in the German scene alongside Vidil. That'll be super cool to see 2 NA players go over. I would love to see that. We have Muzz, Yapko, and Rise finishing in 5th overall. Very good performance by them as well. I think they're a little bit upset. They were in 3rd going into day 2, so they dropped down a little bit, but still really, really good from a brand new trio, from a not very solid drop at all. Shattered Span got nerfed going into FNCS. We had Rapid, Kanata, and Bolts, the other trio, the co-workers as I call them. Obviously probably not super happy seeing, all of their ex-teammates come in first. They were both played with the teammates in first now. 6th place overall, though, very impressive. Aviv, Booga, Threats dropped down to 7th, but again, for a team that kind of went under the radar, most people not really focusing on them, Booga being caught up in other endeavors on social media that is generating a lot of income. I think Booga's still doing really well, staying locked in and showing up very big performances. We had Noxy, Virgo, and Curly, probably the most underrated team in that top 8. If you've been following competitive, you're probably used to this. Then we had Shadow, Curve, and Tyler, very similar situation in 9th, and then C's, Jack, and Blake. One of the OG duos. Cease has been competing in this game since the skirmishes, not World Cup, since very day 1 of competitive Fortnite. Cease has been showing up and competing, and he's just come top 10 in Chapter 6 with Jack, a very underrated young up-and-comer, and Blake, another OG player. Just insanity. Moving on over to EU, we have Vico, Veno, and Flixie, the favorites, bringing it home on 673 points. It came right down to the wire. The last game on EU was ridiculous. We had all of the top 4 teams pretty much have something go wrong with them. The top 3 teams all went down earlier, had someone on their team go down. Vico's team, they had to reboot in first zone. Malabuka ended up going down to Mr. Savage. Vanya's whole trio got wiped in like the 2nd zone. It was absolute chaos. Queasy had a chance to close it out and win the last game to maybe take the spot. He got a 4 elim 10th because he got chopped out. It was Absolutely ridiculous. It was so entertaining to watch. And I do want to point out, EU won with 673 points. So as I was saying, like when we're talking about, you know, oh, what did Pete do wrong? The underperformance. Pete's team got 908 and didn't even win NA, and EU has won on 673. That's a typical storyline on EU. You know, the points are always a little bit closer. There is a lot more pros on EU just because of the player base size, over twice as many players. So you usually see less of a discrepancy between the best team and then the worst team in the lobby. NA, we have those, you know, those big names that just dominate and take all of the points with a bunch of elims, but it was a very, very good performance. Vico, Veno, Flixi will now be booking their ticket to LAN, and they'll be joined by Ping, Wox, and Malabuka, who came in second on 648. Like I said, last game, Savage's team took down Malabuka. You could hear how much it hurt Panzer to take down Malabuka, knowing they were in second, but that's just Fortnite. Both teams played phenomenally well, closed it out, and it's two really good teams to be sending to LAN. It is worth mentioning now, these 4 teams from EU and NA and any of the teams in the small region, they now have a very big buff going forward in the next 2 seasons of competitive. No one wants to contest them now. You have way more to lose than they do if you drop on them. If you grief each other, they're already in LAN. They can just grief you out of making it. You have so much more to lose than them, which means these teams are going to get their choice of the best drops. Usually, they're the best teams on the region. They're not normally going to get dropped on, but it does have big indications for teams like King, who just won his, I think, 6th FNCS on Brazil, who is now talking about apparently moving to NA to compete going forward, and he has an uncontested drop. I imagine if we're going to finally see a team on a small region come to a big region and get a good drop uncontested, this will be the time to see it. So we'll see how that plays out for competitive going forward. Unfortunately, Vanya, Pixie, and Marius do not